Please be seated. Welcome everybody to the council meeting Thursday, the 16th of July 2026. I'll make a short announcement. Everyone is welcome to record this meeting, provided they do not disturb the conduct of the meeting. More information is available in the agenda. I'd like to remind everybody present that this meeting is being filmed and made available to view in live and archive form via the council's website. If you are seated in the public gallery, it is possible that the camera may capture your image. If you wish to avoid being filmed, it's recommended you make a member of staff aware and they will direct you where to sit. The Westgate Gardens gates are locked after sunset and members of the public should leave the Guildhall by the side exit behind the glass door. Should the fire alarm sound, please leave through the nearest safe exit. The assembly point will be the Tower House car park. Item 1 is apologies. Do we have any apologies, please?
Yes, we have apologies from councillors Lee Castle, Liz Harvey, Robert Jones, Tom Mellish, Peter Old and Simon Worley.
Thank you. Any apologies from the floor? No, thank you. Item 2, declarations of councillors' interest. I'd like to invite Councillor Baldock, Sol, Carnac and Harvey to each make a statement that any declarations of interest by members of the respective parties are declared again by any of the members present at this meeting.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. On behalf of the Labour Group, Canterbury City Council, I declare any declarations of interest made by members of the Labour Group are declared again by those members present at this meeting.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Same for the Lib Dem Group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and for the Conservative Group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Same for the Green Group.
Thank you. We move on to a change to the order of the agenda. I'd like to propose a change to the order of the published agenda to take item 9A, the motion Hazara Community and Sanctuary Support. After item 4, announcements, this will enable us to manage public attendance and we can agree that by general assent. Do we have that by general assent? Thank you, councillors. Councillor Edwards.
Lord Mayor, apologies everybody, I wasn't able to get my card to work. I just need to make a declaration of interest before we start because I'm a trustee of CRAN, that's Kent Refugee Action Network. Thank you.
Thank you. That is noted and we will come to that after item 4. We'll move on to item 3, petitions or questions from the public. There are 2 petitions from the public for this meeting. First, I'll invite Masoma Isani to present their petition. You have 3 minutes to cover your points once you come to your seat. Thank you.
The Lord Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Masoma. I'm a nurse working for the NHS. And I'm proud to call Canterbury my home. I'm also Hazara woman from Afghanistan. And one of many people in this city whose community has lived through one of the world's longest and most silent genocide in history. For more than 130 years, the Hazara people have been persecuted simply because of who we are. Between 1891 and 1893, around 2/3 of the Hazara population were massacred by the King Abdurrahman Khan, and the rest was either enslaved or displaced across the region. British officials at that time reporting from Kandahar, recorded that the king intended to exterminate the Hazara. In August 1998, after capturing Mazar-e-Sharif, the Taliban massacred thousands of Hazara civilians. Before the killing, the Taliban declared that Hazara must convert, leave Afghanistan, or die. In 2020, a gunman attacked the Medicine Sans Frontières maternity hospital in Hazara community of Dashtibarchi, Kabul. Mothers in labor, newborn babies, and the midwives caring for them were murdered. These are not isolated atrocities. They are a part of long and documented pattern of persecution. The evidence set out in briefing paper shared with you in advance. Today, Canterbury is home to many Hazara families who sought sanctuary here after fleeing persecution from Afghanistan. By voting for this motion, you will honor those you have lost, acknowledge our history, and stand with us. Recognition cannot change the past, but silence should never define our future. Today, I respectfully ask you to vote in favor of this motion on the agenda. Stand for truth. Stand for justice. Stand with your Hazara neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Soma. As this position relates to the first motion on the agenda, it will be debated at that stage. The item will now be heard after item 4, announcements. Next, I invite Trevor Buggs to present their petition. You have 3 minutes to cover your points.
Good evening, Mr Baldock, councillors and Lord Mayor. I'm here tonight to present to you the petition to save the nursery industrial units in C Street from closure by CCC. Regrettably, Sue Lloyd, the original petitioner, is away. I am the first reserve. I'm speaking on behalf of the petitioner and the tenants, many of whom are here tonight. The petition stands at around 2,900 signatories. It has been signed by people angry about the council's treatment of these small businesses. The handling of this matter by the council is at best haphazard and at worst deplorable. The issue has and continues to cause huge anxiety to business owners, some of whom have been in situ for 20 years plus. These are local businesses who provide a service to the residents of Herne Bay. They use local suppliers during the course of their day-to-day businesses. These small businesses are a vital part of our local community, contributing to the local community. What are you going to do, Mr Baldock? You have no plan to develop the site, you have not submitted a planning application, and you have no funding for this site. How does the loss of 6 viable businesses fit in with your regeneration plan for Herne Bay? The site is in a commercial area. It is not environmentally suited to housing, being sandwiched between Jewsons, the railway, a haulage yard and a busy road. What poor quality of housing this would be for its occupants. Herne Bay has approximately 45 empty shops, with Oxfam joining the list on Saturday. It also has numerous empty, newly renovated built apartments that could be acquired by CCC. The council's responsibility is not merely to build houses, it has a responsibility to build a prosperous community, giving people the opportunity to earn a living, or better still, run their own small businesses, regenerating the local area. If housing is prioritised above everything else, this will then create an imbalance, which is what this development will cause. This action and the uncertainty it has created to the local businesses demonstrates CCC's contempt towards Herne Bay. The tenants still have no idea of how long they can continue to trade, and it appears Canterbury City Council have no idea either. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The petition will be referred to the relevant officer and portfolio holder for further consideration and will also be addressed in response to Councillor Carnack's question later in the meeting. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 4, announcements. I do not have any announcements from the chair. I will pass over to the Joint Chief Executives. Do you have any announcements?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Unusually, I do have one for this evening. Although I believe Kent Online may have beat me to it about 10 o'clock this morning. But for those of you that haven't caught up on the news, you'll be aware that the Minister made a statement in the House of Commons today, sorry, Secretary of State made an announcement in the House of Commons today announcing the local government reorganisation proposals and minded to decision for Kent and Medway. That option was option 4B. Which will now work its way through the Commons Lords and go through the structural changes order process over the summer, and we expect the order to be placed before Parliament around December time. For those of you that haven't, again, looked at the detail of it, 4B was for us in East Kent, was the Canterbury, Thanet and Dover option with no modifications to boundaries. That will leave us with a population in the new council of around 425,000 residents, which is on the lower side of the other councils that will be established in Kent. The only smaller one would be the Mid-Kent one. It covers off a number of areas, but the main reasons for the business case being successful for that was that it was seen as large enough to deliver efficient, high-quality public services at scale, but also small enough to preserve local identity, reflect historic and cultural geographies, and maintain the close connections with communities they serve. In the Secretary of State's decision notice, he said that he felt that this option best aligned with sensible economic areas and supported housing delivery. It delivered place-based and locally responsive services and delivered on the neighbourhood empowerment elements set out in their ambitions for devolution. Within a letter that's been circulated to the leader and Joint Chief Executives and is published on the government's website, it also sent out that further details on the next steps will be circulated over the coming days, and we'll obviously share details of that in our briefing if we know about that on Monday evening. And they also confirmed in both the statement and the written ministerial statement that Kent and Medway will be in receipt of approximately £3.8 million worth of government funding to support it. That's £900,000 per new unitary created. There's also an announcement today of additional funding available for adults and children's services where disaggregation is anticipated, which would be in the Kent and Medway area. And it was also made very clear by both Baroness Taylor this morning when she met with leaders and chief executives, and by the Secretary of State when he spoke, that the unaccompanied asylum seeking children issue, which is a major concern for all Kent areas when Kent gets broken up into smaller unitaries, is not being ignored, and the government departments are committing to working together on a legislative solution which will be in place before vesting day. Obviously, we'll give you more details and more information when we meet on Monday evening. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you for that information. I'd now like to invite the leader and cabinet members to make any announcements they may have. Councillor Baldock.
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. I just need to follow up a little bit on our Joint Chief Exec, Peter Davis, announcement on local government reorganisation. Obviously, it's been going on, it feels like forever. It's taken my life over in the last 6 months to a year. But we are there. The decision has been made. The decision is final. So I'm not unhappy about it. It wasn't the decision that that we endorsed, which was 4D, that made some boundary changes. But it's a 4 model. We feel that was the best model out of if you like, what's left over, better than the 3 large unitaries, or in fact the 5, somewhat fragmented approach to it. So happy about that. But here today, with that decision made and that decision being final, it's incumbent for all of us to work through that decision now, for our residents and our staff, who have, our staff particularly, need to understand that we're on their side. They are part of a new unitary. They have a role to play, and we need them now. We need them in the future. And we will commit to helping that transition for them as well. And also all of us, I think we can take a breath now, and we know what's going to happen, and we need to work together as a council to make sure that we get the very best for our residents going forward. And that year and a bit will be very quick to come around. So many of you in this chamber tonight will, I'm sure, no doubt be standing for elections on the Unitary Authority in May 27. And all of us will be here, we hope, in May 28, when we dissolve ourselves as a council. So a day to look forward and not a day to look back. The future is with the Unitary Authority, and we know what that boundary of that Unitary Authority is going to be. We know who our neighbours are going to be, and we know what sort of authority we can shape if we work at it together. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. As agreed, we will now move on to item 9, where there are 3 motions. We'll take first, and then we'll move back to item 5. The motion can be debated. This will be the motion Hazara Community and Sanctuary Support. The motion can be debated this evening. I'd like to invite Councillor Mike Bland to propose the motion as set out in the agenda.
Thank you, Lord Mayor and Council. Canterbury is rightly proud of its history as a welcoming city and district for refugees fleeing targeted violence and communal destruction. The city and district have a living heritage from the Huguenots, who fled here from France and the Low Countries from 1574 onwards. Today, we similarly welcome our successful and established Hazara population, who are making a positive contribution to our community, both economically and socially. This City Council takes cognizance of the recommendation by the House of Lords Hazara Inquiry on 25th of January 2023 that the government, inter alia, should bring proceedings against Afghanistan before the International Court of Justice for its breaches of the Genocide Convention. We acknowledge that the Hazara people of Afghanistan, as a distinct ethnic and religious group, historically suffered genocidal atrocities in the 1890s, and that there has been continuing genocidal acts, as defined in international law, perpetrated against the community by the Taliban up to and following the withdrawal of US and coalition forces from Afghanistan. We note that the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood has recently announced that the government's intention is to bring in a sponsorship scheme intended as a safe route for asylum seekers. In consideration of this, Council resolves the following. Firstly, that the leader of Canterbury City Council, Alan Baldock, should write to Nessil Kalaskan, MP, Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for Devolution, Faith and Communities in the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, to produce guidance and support for local authorities seeking to work together with both governmental and non-governmental organisations to make such a sponsorship scheme a success. Secondly, that as part of this work, this City Council is undertaking to achieve District of Sanctuary status, we will identify and promote specific services as part of the advice, support and help needed not only by the Hazara but by local members of other populations affected by genocidal acts. I so move and ask Council for its full support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brand. I'd now like to invite Councillor Pat Edwards to second the motion.
Lord Mayor and Council, I second this motion. The Hazara community in Canterbury has become an established and thriving part of our community since their arrival here over the last 20 and more years. I have known members of the community for 15 years. We have heard from Mazuma earlier. She's a nurse working in our local hospital. And for her and all this community, Canterbury and the surrounding district is their home, and a home of which they're very proud. The Hazara are very hard-working people. They work as taxi drivers, medical professionals, hospitality sector, small businesses and more. They work hard and save hard to buy their own homes and to support relatives and others. The Hazara are ambitious for their children, girls and boys equally, and highly value educational opportunities. I'm also aware this community is one who worries a lot about their relatives and friends left behind in Afghanistan. The anxiety of what is happening to their kin and community there because of Taliban atrocities is never far from their minds. This is only deepened by the difficulties in communication, telephone lines which do not always work, and other problems with various social media applications. To only occasionally meet relatives safely may require, for example, a trip to Pakistan, which can be perilous. I ask all councillors to fully support this motion to put in place the practical guidance, advice and support it identifies to benefit the Hazara and other groups within our community. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd now like to invite the council to debate this matter, after which a recorded vote will be taken on the resolution. Do we have anybody like to speak? Councillor Ricketts.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you very much for the petition. I've read the documentation that you provided this evening, so neatly laid out, and some of the emails that have come through as well. I can't really add anything to the motion, but I absolutely will be supporting it. And if I can step outside of protocol and address the public gallery directly, Lord Mayor, I would like to say we recognise your struggle and you are welcome here.
Thank you, Councillor Ricketts. Councillor Connick.
Thank you. First, I would like to thank Homayoun Amini for writing to me earlier this week, and I'd also like to thank members of the Hazara community for coming here this evening to represent your community and to share your petition asking us to recognise the Hazara genocide of 1890 to 1893. That such evil exists in our world is beyond most of our imaginations. I hope that the UK, although we have not always been very welcoming of people fleeing persecution, that we have more often than not been a source of comfort and kindness to many different people. And I'm glad that you have found security in the UK and here in Canterbury. In these troubled times for our world, we know that many communities and individuals are feeling vulnerable and are living in fear. And I believe that it is really important that we all work together to stifle hatred and help understanding across our society. But I maintain my stance on the District of Sanctuary. Given that we have national legislation in this country to protect people and ensure their safety, and we have responded when needed to international crises, for instance, in the 1970s, providing safe routes for Indians fleeing Uganda, and latterly for people having to leave Afghanistan and Ukraine, I still feel this is an unnecessary bureaucratic burden on our council, and I do not support it. While I have no problem supporting refugees across Canterbury with advice and helping them settle in, I do maintain that this should not be an additional burden on our services and that everyone should have equal access. The Council's housing department remains in special measures, and I don't think it's reasonable to add additional pressures to it. Like all of you, I have too many residents in need of affordable housing and a roof over their family's head. Too frequently, it's women with young children fleeing an abusive partner that need our help. Our housing list is already too long and it is taking many months for new applicants to join it. These families need our support too, and we should not be sidetracked by focusing on one group over another. As I say, everyone should be treated equally. And finally, while I think the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has had a massively tough job tackling immigration policy and has to some extent done a good job, I do not like her sponsorship scheme intended as a safe route for asylum seekers, which has been copied from Canada. Given that Miss Mahmood may not be the Home Secretary by early next week, it would also be premature, in my view, for us to back something that may well change in the coming days, weeks and months. In other words, we wouldn't know what we are backing. I also agree with the Conservative Party leader, Kemi Badenoch, that we need to sort out immigration in this country full stop, rather than being deflected by potentially expensive and diversity community safe route schemes. Therefore, sadly, I cannot support this motion in its entirety as it stands tonight and the way it's been written because of the letter to the minister particularly, which greatly disappoints me because I have huge sympathy with the Hazara community here tonight, as with many other communities, including our community of the Jewish faith in Canterbury, who are also going through a terrible time at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carnac. Councillor Prentice.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm moved by how many of Canterbury's Hazara community are here with us tonight, and I want you to know that I stand in solidarity with you. Many of you live in the ward I represent, in Barton Ward in South Canterbury, and so I want to thank you for being here. And I thank Councillor Bland and thank Councillor Edwards for bringing forward this motion. As an aside, but it's relevant, I've just become a trustee recently of Canterbury for Ukraine, and I know just how much the history of Ukraine does have some tragic and sad parallels with the history of the Hazara community, as do many communities around the world. The measures set out in this motion are the least we can do as a council. They are not onerous, Lord Mayor, and we can do more at the level of national government. We can, and we always should do more, and we should tell people when we want to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Prentice. Councillor Dawkins.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for bringing the motion, and thank you for all coming here today. As it said at the end of the petition that was sent around, that we also, I just sort of want to pick up on the petition that you brought to us today about recognition. So that recognition can't, you said in that petition, recognition cannot change the past. It cannot acknowledge historical truth, honour the memory of those who were lost, affirm the dignity of survivors, and reinforce Canterbury's commitment to being a welcoming, inclusive and compassionate district of sanctuary. And that's exactly what we agreed, I believe, on 30th of October 2023. The council backed a motion to sign up to the City of Sanctuary Charter and work towards achieving a district of sanctuary status. So for me, we've already agreed to this. For me, this is about how we treat people, especially people who have fled war, persecution, genocide and horrific atrocities and are trying to rebuild their lives. I cannot even imagine to begin to feel what it feels like to have your whole community targeted, to see people you love murdered, or to be forced to leave everything behind just to be safe. And we want to uphold those values for our own families too, friends and communities. We treat that little phrase we say, treat others how you would like to be treated yourself, is so important here. So that's why recognition matters. Recognising genocide, that the atrocities people have faced does not undo what has happened, but it tells survivors that their pain is seen, their history is not being ignored, and their dignity matters. It also matters for us as a community because it's the way we say we are a place of sanctuary. We have to be willing to recognise the truth of what people are fleeing from, not just offer a welcome once they arrive. And you can have a properly managed immigration system and still believe people should be treated with kindness and dignity. So this motion to me asks to continue this work we are doing as a council. We haven't quite got there yet, but we are setting a precedent and we want it to be a welcome and equal society. It also asks to write to the MP to support with guidance, which I guess will be a part of the scheme as it rolls ahead. And it's right that we make sure that we help enable this too. And there's lots of partnerships in Canterbury that are already doing a lot of work, such as the Uni of Kent and Christchurch and many more. So I know that this will be possible to do that. So I welcome the motion tonight and I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Dawkins. Are there any Councillor Moses.
Thank you, Chair. First, I want to really just speak directly to the Hazara community. And before anything else, I speak to you as a fellow human being with dreams, hopes, and aspirations. I want you to know that I see you, I hear you, and you matter. For me, this is what politics is about. It is about giving a voice to those whose voices are too often gone unheard. It is about standing alongside communities, recognizing their humanity and ensuring that they are not forgotten. This is not about them and us. It is about all of us. Our shared humanity is greater than anything that divides us. When I look at you, I see myself. I see people who simply want the opportunity to live in safety with dignity and with a hope for the future. And for those reasons, I'll be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Moses. Councillor Watkins.
Thanks, Lord Mayor, and thank you to the Hazara community who've come tonight, and all of your fellow people from our district who make this contribution. Obviously it's tragic to hear the stories of years, decades, centuries of persecution that you've had inflicted upon you, and I'm sure everyone here, if everyone was to speak, would echo that sentiment. We recognise that genocide, and I'm glad the national government is taking action on that. And for that reason, I would absolutely support what you have written to us all, asking to support, and I suspect every councillor in this chamber would. My concern is not with your proposal. My concern is with the motion that's been put to us tonight by two of the councillors. I feel that is very undefined. I don't feel like I know what I would be signing up to in that regard. To give one example of that, undoubtedly, Hazara community has suffered persecution in Afghanistan, but I'm aware of other ethnic minorities in Afghanistan that have also suffered terrible persecution. I'm aware of ethnic minorities in other countries in many parts of the world who've suffered persecution and genocide. And there are other ethnic minorities just in our district of Canterbury who have suffered persecution when they've been in their original home. So this looks to be a motion which is trying to set up a safe route just for one of those groups. And I would say, if we were going to do something along these lines, surely we must be looking more broadly at that and saying, well, what would apply to other groups under similar circumstances, rather than just choosing one group. Additionally, it's not defined what the promotional and preferential services provided to people coming through these safe routes would be. So I would just say, while there's plenty of good in the first half of the motion as written, and I absolutely support this document from the Zamara community or Canterbury, I would like to see a proper paper with much more defined specifications of what we would actually be delivering and how that would play out across many other ethnic groups resident in our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Councillor Jeep.
Councillor Watkins and Councillor Connick, I fully appreciate your comments there, but this is the Hamza community that have come to us to ask for help. They've taken time out to write to us, to work with us, to work out a way for them, because that's their experience. Everyone that comes here asking for help should get help. There are many different ethnic minorities that are experiencing persecution, but at this meeting, at this specific time, it's the Hamza community that are asking for our help. And I will obviously be voting because it's something we have to do. Somebody asks you for help, you want to help them.
Councillor Stockley.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. While I fully understand what has just been said by the Sheriff, I think that we need more detail I need more detail. I'm aware of a number of people in Herne Bay, Canterbury, the villages who require council housing, who are desperately in need of council housing. Thank you, Lord. Anyway, leaving that for 1 minute, I need to know what I'm signing up for. As Councillor Watkins said, it's not listed in here. Are we giving preferential treatment when it comes to housing? What does that look like? How are we going to work this? How do we tell our residents that, I'm sorry, you can't have a house for the next 4 years because we have refugees who are desperately in need and they now are above you in this list? I just need some more answers. I'm not unsympathetic. Indeed, I'm moved by the number of people who are here tonight. And I do feel that we do need to support them, but we haven't got the details. I'm struggling. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stockley. Councillor Baldock.
Thank you. I'll be the person that says it. Okay. I just want us to think back. We all of us are experienced councillors. All of us know that a motion can only be brought to this council with things that this council can do. We know the rules, don't we? So the things that have been suggested by many of you over there are things that are not even in this motion. They are not in this. We're not asking for anything. We have policies and procedures, the housing and all the rest of it. It's not changing any of that. This is quite simply, read the motion. It says nothing about that. It doesn't even say about recognising genocide or anything like that, because we can't do that. So it doesn't say about doing that. This is really, I think, our sheriff summed it up. This community, who I've got to know a little and I admire and respect enormously, come to us and said, look, okay, we could do with the support and help and recognition of this council, that you understand us and you can help us, and you do help us. So we say thank you for that. But also, what can we do extra? And all this is about the one or two things that we can do. We're not changing anything about what the council does for everybody. We're just simply saying, I write to the minister and I ask that minister to consider this Hazara community. And the City of Sanctuary work is ongoing. We recognise that, as Councillor Dawkins pointed out earlier on. All we're saying is we carry on with that, but we make sure the City of Sanctuary has a breath and says, okay, is there some things that we ought to be thinking about in the City Centre when we build up on that policy that goes with that, that particularly will help the Hazara community? And I've no doubt that other communities will come to us and the work of that District of Century and request a little bit of help on those as well. So I think we just need to just chill back where we're going to and not make this any more than what the wording of the motion is putting forward. And it's asking us to respect and honour and think with and help the Hazara community. That's how I read this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. Councillor Hazelton.
Oh, thank you, Lord Mayor. I don't need to speak now. Councillor Baldock has covered the points I would have done. Thank you.
Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. First of all, let me say also directly to the people who've come tonight, thank you for coming tonight. We do see you, we respect you, and you'll always be welcome with us. You've come to us for justice, and it is on us to do what we can to support you. So thank you. Building on what Councillor Baldock and Councillor Jupe have said, for the benefit of some of our colleagues in this chamber, I would just like to read out again the last section of the motion, which Councillors Bland and Edwards put together, which says, we note that the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood has recently announced the government's intention to bring in a sponsorship scheme intended for safe routes for asylum seekers. That is well documented in the news if you would like to read it. In consideration, this council resolves the following: that the leader of Canterbury City Council, Alan Baldock, should write to Nessel Caliscan, MP, Parliamentary Undersecretary of State for Devolution, Faith and Communities in the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, to produce guidance and support for local authorities seeking to work together with both governmental and non-governmental organisations to make the the scheme for safe routes for asylum seekers a success, and that as part of this work that Canterbury City Council is doing to achieve district of sanctuary status, we will identify and promote specific services as part of the advice, support and help needed, not only by the Hazara, but by local members of other populations affected by genocidal acts. I do think the motion was quite clear, and I just wanted to read it out again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. I now call on Councillor Dan Smith.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm a little shocked, actually. I'm hearing a distinction on housing made by the Conservative group here about people in the community when the Hazara are within our community. We have them here right now. We see you. So that, I think, is something that you're actually selecting a particular group and treating them differently if you treat them in that way. Also, I think the housing that you mentioned has been under the control of the current government and for many years under the control of the previous government. So the situation with housing is by the by. I also totally and utterly agree with Councillor Baldock's last statements. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dan Smith. Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm not going to speak for long, but I want to echo the welcome to the community for coming along today. I really appreciate that you've taken the time to come and speak to us and to raise our awareness of your situation. And it's wonderful to hear of that you've made Canterbury your home, that you feel part of the community, and certainly we would want to do everything we can to support that. So thank you for coming.
Thank you, Councillor Turnbull. Are there any other speakers on this motion? If not, now I invite Councillor Bland the opportunity to sum up and reiterate the resolution before we go to the vote.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And thank you, everybody, for your consideration of this, and especially for your welcome to the Hazara community here. I just want to address some of the points that have been raised, if you want, in objection. Councillor Karnak unfortunately doesn't feel that she can support the motion, but I want to thank her for her recognition of the experience of the Hazara, because it's important that that is at least recognised. I want to actually suggest that, in a sense, this is not as onerous a task as perhaps it might seem. We've got in the motion basically a simple ask, because the Home Secretary has announced that there will be safe routes for asylum seekers here. That will undoubtedly impact on local authorities and local non-governmental organisations, because part of the idea of a sponsorship scheme is that it enhances not just the resources of a council, it enhances it mobilises the resources of community groups who make their own decision for doing that. But in liaison with local authorities, there needs to be some kind of guidance about how that is achieved and done. So it's a simple ask to have some clear guidance about that before we go down the route of suggesting this is all about housing. It isn't all about housing at all, and it's not mentioned in this motion at all. Can I just sort of say it's not just for one group of people either. So Councillor Watkins, this is not just for one group. Safe Routes is for potentially as many groups as there may be in need. So it isn't just about one group, but here we're talking about the Hazara, who themselves would like to see support and resources for people of other groups that have had similar experiences. So it's not just about that. I mean, that's actually the point. It's about how to actually organise stuff. It's not just about the resources, it's the organisation of resources. And that's really important. And Councillor Stockley, more details required. As I said, it's not about housing. It isn't about housing. Yes, there's housing need, but this is about how communities may actually enhance and mobilise their own resources to actually cover that need. And in that effort, it may well be the case that a local authority can have a leading role about enhancing those resources. So it's not a drain on the council's resources of public resources, it's about the resources of the community as a whole. And I want you to understand that that is the case. And if you understand that, then I invite you to change your minds and support this motion alongside the rest of us who intend to. So thank you very much, and thank you very much for the Hazara for bringing this issue to our attention.
Thank you, Councillor Bland. Now, I ask to take this to a recorded vote. Obviously, a 4 is for the motion, against is against, and we have the abstention. Thank you.
That has carried 27 for and 6 against.
Thank you. That is now carried. We will now have a very short recess to give the an opportunity for those in the gallery if they would like to leave the chamber before we proceed. And I've just been reminded, whilst it is warm, please feel free to take your jackets off, ties, anything to remain comfortable. We'll be starting in 1 minute.
Want to speak on that one?
Thank you, everybody. If you could take your seats, please. We will now move on to item 5 of the agenda, recommendations to full council from Cabinet. There are no recommendations for full council from Cabinet for this meeting. We move swiftly on to item 6, approval of the Constitution. We move to item 6. Can I invite Peter Davies, Joint Chief Executive, to introduce the item?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This draft of the Constitution reflects all recent decisions made by Council which have now been incorporated. It, however, does not include the most recent recommendations from the Governance Committee on the 8th of July, which will be considered in the next item.
Thank you. Can I invite the Leader, Councillor Alan Baldock, to propose, and the Deputy Leader, Councillor Pip Hazelton, to second the resolution?
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor, and I propose for approval and adoption of these changes to the Constitution. Thank you.
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Would any other member like to speak on this? Can we take a recorded vote on that, please?
That has carried. 31 in favour, 2 abstained.
Thank you. We now move on to item 7, recommendations to full council from committees and boards. A is a recommendation from the Governance Committee, 8th of July 2026, concerning updates to the Constitution. We have recommendations from the Governance Committee in relation to updates. I'd like to invite Councillor Watkins to propose the recommendation on the supplement under item 7A in the agenda, and Councillor Andrew Harvey to second it.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. It's probably a good idea that I just do a 20-second summary of what this actually means before I read out all the wording. Otherwise, you'd pretty much have to have been at Governance Committee to understand it. Is that okay? Yeah, fundamentally, lots of changes coming out of national legislation are requiring the council to change its constitution. All of those amendments were accepted by the Governance Committee last week, with one exception. That's item 1. Item 1.
This is just silly.
Item 1 is where the.
This is just silly. We're residents. You're leaving us to last. Ridiculous.
You're due to be taken next, sir. We moved the other amendment because there were children. You're due to be taken next. Sorry, Councillor Watkins, would you like to continue?
Yeah. So item 1, which the Governance Committee is not happy about, fundamentally, the government is proposing that we further take away the powers of our planning committee to make decisions for local people through various changes. You might have read about the detail, and the committee felt that they wanted some action taken to recognise that sentiment. So I'll now read out what we're proposing to accommodate what was essentially a pretty much a cross-party consensus on that point. So item 1 was an amendment to the officer's recommendation, so I'll read that in full. Council consider whether, before the final wording is incorporated into the Constitution of the 31st of October, the Leader of the Council should write to the Minister requesting that the draft national scheme of delegation be reviewed again and further clarification provided before final adoption. It was noted that any response received from the Minister could be taken into account when formulating the Council's guidance. However, in the absence of a response from the Minister, implementation of the regulations would still be required by 31st of October. Then for items 2 to 5, related to delegations granted to the Director of People, the duties and responsibilities of the Leader, delegations granted to the Joint Chief Executives and to the Monitoring Officer, respectively, and are set out in full in the supplement to this agenda. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah, seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. So the recommendations can be debated. Would any member like to speak? Councillor Baldock.
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. Just to note that I'm quite happy to note and write for clarification. Although, just before I do that, Councillor Watkins, because you were looking for clarity in the previous one, interestingly on my notes here, I was looking for clarity in this one because the motion you said wasn't clear on what we was asking for. And I'm asking you to be clear on what you want more clarification on, because it's no doubt that there will be guidance coming out with this regulation. And the only bit I can ever think of is defining some of the things like significant development or whatever. What is a significant development? So, which I believe is already in the regulations anyway. But I'm quite happy to write, and if you tell me what it is you want to be, or the committee wants to be clarified, you know, that's all I'm asking, and I'm more than happy to do that. And I'm sure that the advice will be useful going forward. So that, I'm absolutely happy with that. So fine.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. Councillor Carnac.
Yeah, thank you. We had quite a lot that night. I can't remember them all off the top of my head because a lot of councillors had a lot of different points, all very good. And I think that because we didn't take part particularly in the consultation on the practicalities of this, there were actually quite a few questions that came forward from members of the committee that evening that I think we could probably go back and find them, and then we could say what we wanted clarity on. And we also, because again, we'll know more, won't we, on Monday or Tuesday, but we have a new Secretary of State coming in, presumably. We also wanted that letter to be written. We know that other councils are probably doing this, so there'll be strength in numbers that maybe we could get some movement because we've got time. We don't need to rush this through at the moment. We've got till October the 31st. And as Jan Geiler made very clear to us, if we don't, then it will go in anyway. So, but just to use this bit of time while we've got a change of government to clarify some things and just see if we could get this revoked, because it's not supported cross-party in this council. Thank you.
If I can just come back on that, Lord, I actually agree with you. I mean, I've got no problem with seeking the clarity. It's just that it's just such a bland thing. Seek clarity on. It's. I'll go back and get a load of clarity. It's not what I wanted clarified. I wanted this clarified. So it's important that we get that. And I think time is going to be there. And I wouldn't be at all surprised to see some written documents anyway in the next couple of months. So we'll leave it a little while, and I shall definitely do that. I'll commit to do that for you. That's not a problem.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. And to everybody, in future, can we debate through the chair, please? I move to Councillor Bland. Did you not put your hand up? No, not to Councillor Bland. Sorry. Councillor Ricketts.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yeah, just in terms of the clarity on that, the debate was fairly detailed the other night in the committee. There was one particular issue that I think is particularly worrying in terms of the drafting of it, and there are a few bits I think might be drafting issues with this legislation. And one is that it leaves the call-in powers to the member and officer that are nominated, which I think in our case would be the chair of the planning committee and the head of planning. The fact that it is the member and officer, it's very rare that you get something where legislation requires officers and members to be aligned on a thing before it can happen. Is it what happens if the chair of the planning committee disagrees with the head of planning? Does that not get called in, and the head of planning doesn't overrule, gets to overrule effectively the chair of the planning committee? So that's one particular answer that it might be a quick answer. It might require the legislation to be to be redrawn. But there were a few others within that as well, just in terms of the specifics around the list of houses, the various things on there. It's a very simple piece of legislation for a very, very complicated set of things. And that was one of the main reasons we weren't comfortable adopting it as was. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ricketts. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. That was pretty well summed up by the other councillors already, but it was really the clarity. There was some guidelines about developments being called in when they had a major impact. I can't remember the exact wording now, but it was either financial, environmental, or community impact, and that was all a bit subjective. We thought we did have a very long discussion about various aspects of it, but that was certainly one of the items that was pretty vague. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Sol.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm sure we could have the whole governance meeting all over again, but I suppose really for me it was just greater clarity, if I can use that word again, on the tier 1 and tier 2, with some examples of what goes in there, because not everything will be black and white. And when it isn't black and white as to where it falls, who makes that decision? This is a significant change. And I think, you know, residents and developers alike will be keen to understand exactly where their planning applications may lie. And the other thing I would seek clarification on, we have the start date. Now, is that the date from which, you know, if you put an application in 2 weeks before, but it's not been looked at, is it the decision date? When does this actually change? Are we going to see a mad rush of applications just before? So I'd be interested to know a bit more about that. It's those sort of practical things with examples that I think we all want some more clarity on.
Thank you, Councillor Sol. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't governance, so I don't really know. I wasn't aware of the debate, but I do have serious concerns about the way planning is going. I mean, we've dropped from 13 members to 9. That's not really been explained to me why, constitution and all that. But you're giving less opportunity of the public to actually have their voice at these committees, and then you're now possibly taking away rights for councillors to call in. And it's more, you know, I mean, I've done planning for 10 years. I've probably called, I don't remember if I called in anything, to be honest with you. You are better working with the applicant and the planners and the neighbours and stuff like that to try and compromise before it comes to planning. And I do that all the time. I do think bit by bit, we are losing the planning as a cabinet committee bit by bit. And I think eventually, I mean, if it's fit for purpose now, we're not really sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Hazelton.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As the new planning portfolio holder, I'd just like to make a couple of points, and you can decide whether they're party political or not, Lib Dems. But I wasn't the planning portfolio holder at the time that the government consultation took place, nor was I part of the timing of the withdrawal from the coalition. So the timing of this paper to governance coincided with me getting to grips with my new portfolio. So I apologise for any inadequacy on my part for not having had sufficient knowledge or oversight of this or background. I did a lot of reading in the run-up to it, but I didn't have any control over the timing of it. So any shortcomings are my responsibility because they've happened on my watch. I won't say anything else because I think there's a question coming later.
Thank you, Councillor Hazelton. Councillor Boswell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, from my reading of the proposed legislation, to answer Councillor Ricketts' question, I read that the nominated officer and the nominated member should agree, and if they don't agree, the application is determined by officers. I think it states that.
Thank you, Councillor Boswell. Councillor Dixie.
Thank you, Laura. I lived in Dublin for 5 years before moving into Canterbury, and in Dublin I was involved with local politics. In Ireland, all planning applications are decided by officers. Councillors have no input. They set out the policies and officers make all the decisions. It's widely accepted in Ireland that corruption in planning is widespread. Developers bribe officers to grant them planning permission. There's no checks and balances because members are not involved. I find the proposals from this government is going to open the door to pressures on officers to be corrupt.
I think we're walking a fine line, making statements like that. I'm sure the legal advice would be that those statements like that are probably not appropriate in a chamber like this. If it was rhetorical, I take it as that instead of a statement, but a question questioning those points. Do we have any other? Councillor Dan Smith.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'd just like to echo Councillor Connick's proposal of going through the governance recordings when drafting the letter, because it's very clear all the points that were made in that. This legislation was widely deemed to be pretty heavy-handed, and I think it was. I think it would be sensible to register our disagreement or uncomfortableness. I think lack of comfort, definitely uncomfortableness is that a word. Lack of comfort with this particular change. Thank you.
Beth, sorry, first name.
Thank you, Chair. It's a very quick contribution. So I was also at Governance Committee, and as I said at Governance Committee, and with respect to my fellow committee members, I think one of the key problems and difficulties for members of the committee with this proposal and change, aside from other comments people have made, is understanding. And I think there was a concern that if committee members who are experienced planning committee members, experienced councillors, and have read the papers, didn't fully understand all the implications, there was a concern that residents might not as well. So not a comment on what should happen in any letter, but I think there is a point that maybe when the change comes in, there needs to be a bit of training, guidance as to what can be expected, because as you've heard tonight, people aren't quite sure. And I think that would reassure both members and probably some of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Forrester. I invite anybody else to speak from the floor, and if not, we will then come back to Councillor Watkins to sum up.
Yeah, it's been a lengthy debate, but very welcome. If the leader needs further clarification, there are the published minutes on our website, which have every point which was debated on the night, and we would be very happy to see all of them make their way into the letter. Some are genuine clarifications, in fact, all are genuine clarifications, but in case of one or two, if that clarification puts a little bit of pressure on the government not to make the change at all, I'm sure that would also be welcome. But I recognise here that there are people with greater powers than us making the final decision. We'll just try our best. I hope everyone can support this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Now I ask for us to take a recorded vote.
That has carried, 32 in favour and 1 abstain.
Thank you. We now move swiftly on to councillors' questions. We've got 6 questions for the meeting. May I remind you, there is an overall time limit of 30 minutes for all councillor questions. Each questioner will have 1 minute to put their question and 3 minutes is allowed for the response. Each questioner will also be allowed to ask 1 supplementary question, which the responder to the original question may answer. No other contribution is allowed. If we do not have time to cover all 6 questions, any questions that have not been put will be circulated by email along with a written statement. Can I just ask the supplementaries, because we only have 30 minutes and 6 questions, brevity will be great, and it wouldn't be a speech, it's a supplementary question. Can I invite Councillor Carnac to put their first question, please?
Okay, it's unfortunate that they've left, but What are the plans for the businesses in Nursery Estate in Herne Bay? As we've heard this evening, they're good, decent, small businesses that are boosting the town's economy. Why are we ending leases now without providing new business locations or help on those locations? While this site is in the next local plan, when do you honestly expect this site to be redeveloped? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Connick. I now invite Councillor Chris Cornell as the portfolio holder to make the response.
Thank you, Rachel. The industrial estate at Sea Street has been in the council's property portfolio since 1979, and it was bought with the intention of regenerating the area for brownfield housing. The site was offered up by yourselves in the previous administration as part of a strategic housing market assessment in the 2017 local plan, but ultimately not considered to be as viable as other larger Herne Bay sites. And I think with this in mind, the adjacent ambulance station was purchased in 2018. As the council always intended to develop the site for housing, businesses were offered leases on a short-term basis while the council assembled the land and developed its plans. Before entering into these leases, all businesses were served a notice making them aware that they were waiving the statutory protections and understood that there was no security of tenure. They were on very short leases and knew this to be the case. Every new lease which has been issued at the end of the expiring lease has included the same notice. So there have been periodic reminders of the council's position. The administration identified the genuine brownfield potential for the site in 2023 and earmarked it for 14 homes in that year's local plan consultation. A number of the leases were due to expire at the end of September, and recently the council has taken the decision not to grant new ones. To help businesses find a home and ease the anxiety, we've now agreed to extend the leases due to expire in September 2026 to March 2027, with break clauses which will allow the tenants to leave earlier if they wish and when they can hopefully find alternative premises. The estate is ageing and frankly at end of life. The roofs above units 4, 5 and 6 are knackered, and quotes for replacing the roofs range from £168,000 to £220,000. The ambulance station lies vacant because it also needs a new roof, which we've been quoted at as over £184,000. Collectively, we estimate the cost of bringing up all the units to spec could be as high as 1.57 million, which is equivalent to 15 years of a total rent roll, which we have ever received on the site. We believe that upgrading the site is simply not financially viable, nor justifiable use of public funds in advance reprovision of the site for housing. There are currently 6 tenants in situ and 2 vacant units, and we fully understand that our decision will affect their future, but we believe we've been clear about them, with them about the risk of their business at that site. We are encouraged to see that many have identified and are negotiating alternative premises and remain confident that the strength of public support found in the petition is evidence that they have a loyal customer base. A brownfield release fund application is being developed over the summer to be submitted this autumn, when it is expected the next round of funding applications will be open. The current plan is to appoint a demolition contractor by the end of March, and assuming we are successful in the brownfield release fund application, to complete demolition by August 2027.
Would you like to come back with a supplementary?
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Cornell. I don't think this, this won't be welcome news to the businesses or the people who signed the petition, but I would just ask that that timetable you've just spelt out there, that could be really published, available, and that there is that you let us know what the plan for this site is, so that it's not demolished and left vacant for 10 or 20 years. And also, my other question is, will you please help the businesses find new locations? Because given the rent that they can afford to pay, this is really a struggle for them at the moment, and somewhere like Altira is not an option. So I would be very grateful if the new business development team would be able to support in that way, and I ask if you can do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Connick. As an agile supplementary, I now invite Councillor Cornell to come back.
I'll come up with an agile response. Thank you very much, Rachel. And I appreciate it won't be well received, and I will take the substance that I've put in this meeting and make sure I return it, that information back to Trevor. Obviously, the challenge is about the investment that we need to make in Herne Bay. The investment we need to make across the council as a whole means that we have to make commercial decisions. Our commercial income brings in over £6 million worth of our revenue. And in this case, given that the local plan is a 15-year period, it would just not be sensible to spend 15 years worth of the potential rent roll on that. I believe that they've been given information about alternative places they can ask for support. I'm very happy for the economic development team to reach out to them. We do believe that for the quality of accommodation we've been providing at the moment, we've been charging a market rent. So I think some of the challenge will be both the size of the unit that they're seeking alternatives for, and that newer, more modern units that they might move into will be more expensive. But to be honest, if we'd spent £1.57 million, we would have had to revise the rents and probably do a remarket valuation anyway. But I'll make sure that information is passed on to tenants and thank her for raising the issue.
Thank you, Councillor Cornell. I now move to Councillor Boswell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As this is related to agenda item 7, I appreciate that there may not be a great deal of clarity in the answer. In view of the reduced scope of applications that will go to the Planning Committee and the reduced powers that will be accorded to the committee after October this year, what kind of planning applications, if any, do you envisage will actually be considered by the committee from October onwards?
Councillor Baldock, as leader, to make their response. Councillor Hazelton, my notes are wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thanks for the question. I won't waste council's time with giving background to the piece, which we've obviously just covered. But I suppose my view is not being experienced in planning, but being experienced in the introduction of other legislation, you know, for implementation by local authorities, is that there is always guidance issued closer to implementation day, and things like clarification of terms like significant and so forth are clarified in the guidance. And so, you know, my notes basically advise me to let council know that will be forthcoming, and that was my main reason for abstaining on the vote just now. I suppose I've already had conversation with our chief planning officer to encourage asking them to get ask developers to engage earlier with key stakeholders, including local residents and councillors, because I think that, you know, the version 1, the version 2, the version 3, you know, co-created, I think is the popular term these days, with the developer, is key to getting the best possible application coming forward. And of course, as a kind of quasi-judicial like body, as long as the application is in line with national and local, you know, plans, then a development will need to be passed. I think the important thing is for the engagement of local councillors with the local planning department at that early stage to help refine and get the best possible application in before it's being applied for. Thank you.
Would you like a supplementary, Councillor Boswell?
Yes, Lord Mayor. Well, related to what Councillor Hazelton has just said, and thank you for your response, in order to allow at least some scrutiny by elected representatives and to redress the democratic deficit to at least some extent, will this council consider establishing a planning overview committee or something similar, which is established normal practice in some other councils, to review planning applications such that improvements can be recommended and hopefully achieved prior to final decisions being taken by officers?
Councillor Hazelton.
Not familiar with it, but I'll go back and ask about it, and we'll write to you. Okay, thanks for the question.
Thank you. That was 2 questions in 10 minutes. We've got 4 more to get through. So if the supplementaries can be quite quick, please. Councillor Andrew Harvey, if you'd like to present your question, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll be very quick. I was very pleased to see the new bike storage lock-in facilities and the lockers that went in, I think, last October. I just wondered if we had any usage data on a monthly basis for I think there were 31 facilities went in last October, and if we had some figures for those, please.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Dawkins.
Hello, Councillor Harvey. We always exchange questions, don't we? Yeah, so I've got the response here for you, what the figures are. So the cycle I'll just get straight to it, shall I? There have been 158 bookings from December to the end of June. So do you want them broken down into months? I can tell you that there has been a trend. The trend is increasing. So I can have it. Do we want to hear it? So in December, there was 16. In January, there was 14. In February, there was 12. In March, there was 16. In April, there was 29. In May, there was 35. And in June, there was 36. So it is increasing.
Would you like a supplementary, Councillor Harvey?
Yeah, please. I mean, that doesn't sound great. Roughly one a day for all those lockers. Problem I found with them was that they you have to download an app which isn't compatible on my phone or do a monthly subscription. So, is there any opportunity to make it easier and encourage people to use them, e.g., with a touch pay, something like that, so you can pay as you go basis?
Councillor Dawkins.
It's not something that I can answer right this moment, so it's something I can take away and find out. Is that okay? But in terms of, when people are booking those are long, some of them are long term, or they might be having it in there for a few hours, not just sort of 10 minutes or something. So, okay, but I'll take it away. Thank you very much.
Thank you, councillors. Now I move on to Councillor Flanagan's question, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Following water supply disruption across Whitstable in May, many vulnerable residents reported not receiving bottled water deliveries despite being on South East Water's priority list. Many were unable to reach water stations in Chesfield and Herne Bay. Please could the council provide an update on its discussions with South East Water to ensure all eligible vulnerable residents are correctly registered and supported, and on planning for more locally accessible water stations closer to affected areas during any future supply disruptions.
Thank you, Councillor Flanagan, and I'll invite Councillor Chris Cornell.
Thank you, James. It is not an irony lost on me that myself and Bill Hicks met with South East Water on the 15th of May, 2 weeks before the original thing, along many other leaders and members from councils across Kent, where they discussed specifically how changes for priority list locations were going to arrive, how new people were going to be added, and more importantly, where they wanted to locate bottled water stations. We went for an emergency planning exercise where we got out maps, and we told them that certain places like the John Wilson Industrial Estate, right by the Estuary View, like the Altira, just weren't fit for purpose in terms of both their distance away from particular communities, but also the tailbacks that they ended up creating in particular areas. And obviously in May, we proactively responded by offering up things like Lucerne Drive Community Centre, and there's been some recent good work with Herne Village to create what they class to be smaller community drop-in locations. When we have the problems again in June, we also offered additional locations in smaller community areas. We offered up Tankerton Coach Park at a particular location, but it's clear that effectively the information that we fed in about where we think is most appropriate had not really had time to percolate through the system yet. And they have spent May and June chasing their tails. One of the things we have been doing is more proactively, we've been working with the Kent Resilience Forum when problems about water quality come together. And that's both sharing information, but also meaning that at the end of every kind of incident, so to speak, there's a full wrap up. And so information on problems that people have had around priority list allocations. So for example, a recent problem, which is now South East Water have a means by which you can be on like a priority list plus, which means that if you can't physically lift the bottles of water into your house, they will take people and bring them, put them on your kitchen and open the tops for you. But finding information about getting onto that list is almost impossible. So we've started feeding that information back through the Kent Resilience Forum. We've done that twice, obviously, in as a result of the two incidents that have happened afterwards. And we will continue to seek and push for more locally accessible water stations.
And do you have a supplementary?
I do, Lord Mayor. Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Cornell. One area in Chesfield that was affected in those disruptions was the Broomfield Gate and Radfall areas, about 70 houses. In fact, some of those areas, some of those houses have experienced ongoing disruptions, would you believe, for over 10 years because of technical issues concerning the local pumping station there. Please could I ask that the council and yourself as cabinet member in your discussions with South East Water continue to press the company to do something about that particular issue, fix the technical issues affecting that area, particularly, as I say, as some houses there have been experiencing ongoing disruption for over 10 years, which I'm sure all agree is quite unacceptable.
Councillor Cornell.
I completely agree. And I think that's why we're raising both the issue with the notice motion, which comes from Councillor Carnac, and the motion which comes later from Councillor Smith. I think we now know far more about the technicalities about pumping water up the hill to Whitstable and Herne Bay than we ever really needed to. But I do think that there are still lots of points that we don't particularly understand. And I am very aware of the particular problems in and around Radfeld, which seem to be quite specific. They either seem to be the first ones that drop out or the last ones that get fitted back on. Hopefully we can talk about that more later on through the notices of motion.
Thank you. Now I invite Councillor Thomas for their question.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I recently discovered, while attending a cabinet meeting, that the sale of Military Road hasn't gone through. This will have a very negative impact on the council's finances, since any capital receipts is now delayed, and as we now continue paying rates on the ongoing basis, increase the council's operations and expenses. Please, can you confirm when the proposed sale of Military Road fell through and what is happening to ensure new sales? Also, how will the council mitigate the negative impact on the event of both the capital and current budgets? Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. I invite Councillor Baldock as the leader to make the response.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Thomas. Yeah, just to let you know that actually the sale of Military Road is still going ahead, and it's still in negotiation stage. It's not fallen through. The contract was entered into was conditional subject to planning and contract, and requires the buyer to obtain planning consent for the site before the site can be completed. Not unusual, I'm sure, and that is the place for him. A planning application for the site has been submitted. We know what's going to be built there, and many of you can check that if you wish to. The buyer remains committed to the acquisition of the site, and the officers and the whole team are working with the buyer to finalise the remaining outstanding matters, most notably the requirement for nutrient neutrality credits, which proved incredibly challenging for that site, probably much more so than both parties initially thought. But that's not impossible, and both parties are working to get that solution, and we're very optimistic that consent will be granted along with the approval of the nutrient neutrality and other issues. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Thomas?
Yes, please, Lord Mayor. Why was such a major news not communicated sooner, and what is being done about it? And what is the total cost of the new council offices? Where is the funding coming from to pay it if we haven't sold the council offices? Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Baldock.
The details are budgeted and known about, and we can put together a report that takes that issues if you wish to, and give you an update on that in more detail. But in essence, we are still awaiting the sale, and the sale should cover the cost of the offices. And that will be the case that we work through as time goes by. So we will get some details and get a personal note to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I now invite Councillor Watkins for their question.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. After a huge amount of chasing, myself and others have been able to obtain KPI data for the full set of Canenco services. I note that many of the original contractual KPIs have been removed or downgraded, but that is for another evening. My question relates to the recycling rate KPI. It shows that prior to the bin strike in 2023, the recycling rate was 45%. It dropped to 41% in the year of the strike, and the latest data shows it is barely recovered, languishing at 41.7% in the most recent year. As many of us feared at the time of the strike, it seems that recycling rates have been permanently scarred by the 9-week strike hiatus we experienced. This means thousands of tonnes of rubbish, which the previous administration were successfully recycling are now being sent for incineration. What will the council do to restore recycling rates to their previous level and beyond?
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. I now invite Councillor Charlotte Cornell as the portfolio holder to respond.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. I'm glad you enjoyed KPI Fest. It was in Cabinet Papers and will be again later this year. A comparison of the tonnage between 21-22 and 25-26, which is the period you referred to, shows the following trends. So in domestic waste, the overall tonnage reduced by 7.5%. In recycling, the overall tonnage reduced by 10%. Food waste, the overall tonnage increased by 6.5%. And garden waste continues to account for 30% of all recyclable tonnage collected. Garden waste volumes, as you know, are influenced by subscription levels and seasonal weather conditions, and extended dry periods can significantly reduce tonnage. For example, Q1 of 26-27 recorded 330 tonnes less than the same period the previous year. Now, I'm glad I had enough time in the 30 minutes to flush out this detailed answer, because what really, something that's hugely influenced the difference in tonnage collected since the last administration in the olden days and now is something called lightweighting, where manufacturers have, under legislation and under will, adopted lighter packaging designs to reduce material costs and transport emissions, packaging taxes, and environmental impact. So just to give you an example, because it kind of correlates to the amount of tonnage collected and the reduction in the percentage, wine bottles, since the period you cited to now, have reduced by 18 to 25%. Beer bottles by 10 to 17%. Plastic packaging has reduced in its comparative tonnage density by up to 15%, and cardboard packaging by 10%. So the overall industry trend is quite clear. Packaging across glass, plastic, and paper-based products has become significantly lighter. And whilst this supports our wider and the country's wider environmental and carbon reduction objectives, it also means that recycling tonnages are falling even when residents continue to recycle the same or at higher rates. So consequently, recycling tonnage and recycling percentage metrics are being increasingly influenced by factors outside of the control of the council and indeed outside of the control of residents. And we looked quite closely at how those figures in lightweighting correlated to the reduction, and they are really, really close. Hope you found that interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Charlotte Cornell. Councillor Watkins, do you have a supplementary?
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I won't try and unpick that wealth of data on the fly, but I do appreciate her praising the previous Conservative government's recycling and packaging policies and the impact they've had. But my question would just be, given all of that, I'm aware, and some people in the room might also be aware, we get paid a bonus by KCC for hitting a certain recycling rate percentage. Now you're saying that's not entirely down to the strike that it's dropped. Are we still getting the full bonus from KCC then, or are we actually have we got a shortfall in that income?
Charlotte Cornell, good luck off the top of your head.
I don't know, Dan, if we're getting the bonus, but it does feed into, have KCC reviewed and adopted and updated their policies, reviewing the impact of lightweighting on their tonnage collection. It's interesting. I mean, I'm sure KCC have sent us some very interesting correspondence this week, which shows that their portfolio holders aren't entirely over their own briefs. But I'm very happy to correspond with the member at KCC to see if they're reviewing their payouts in light of some of the improvements in recycling made in packaging. Yeah, thank you. Interesting.
I'm getting nods and thumbs up, so you did well. Thank you, everybody. We did that in the time limit, and now we can move on to back to item 9, notices of motion. We've already done A, so we'll move to B, motion keeping the taps running. This motion can be debated this evening. I'd like to invite Councillor Naomi Smith to propose the motion as set out in the agenda.
Thank you, Chair. And I beg to move the motion to keep the taps running. Just for the last 5 days in Whitstable, Herne Bay and now Blean, we have once again been living with uncertainty about whether the taps would keep running. South East Water warned customers to use water only for essential purposes, opened precautionary bottled water stations and delivered bottled water to some priority service customers. Residents who only a few weeks ago had endured days without water were once again filling kettles, bottles and buckets before going to bed. Businesses and schools were again wondering whether they would be able to open the doors the following morning. This isn't how people should live in 2026. It's just not good enough. Last summer, residents of Sea Salt were without water for up to 6 days. During the May half term this year, thousands more residents and businesses across Whitstable and Herne Bay again experienced days without a reliable water supply. Some vulnerable residents waited more than 36 hours for bottled water. Families were left without a basic necessity that most of us take for granted. People are scared, worried and angry because they no longer have confidence that when they turn on the tap that water will come out. Charlotte and I didn't want to bring this motion based on assumptions. We asked South East Water on the 14th of June and again on the 1st of July, asking very detailed technical questions based on what they'd said at public meetings and at scrutiny committee about why these failures keep occurring, what permanent infrastructure improvements are needed, and when residents can expect them to be delivered. Despite repeated assurance, we have yet to receive a substantive response. I've shared the response with James, so he knows what I'm talking about. Instead, South East Water has acknowledged that it struggles during periods of sustained demand and has relied on widespread emergency tankering simply to keep water flowing. Residents are asking us one simple question. If emergency measures are needed now just to keep the taps running today, how can they have confidence that the infrastructure will support existing residents, let alone future housing? This motion is not about opposing growth. It's about ensuring the infrastructure keeps pace with development. If it does, then let's see the evidence. If it doesn't, then we have a responsibility to consider what action is available to us. Emergency tankers and bottled water deliveries are not infrastructure. They are a contingency. Tonight, we have an opportunity to speak with one voice on behalf of our residents. Doing nothing is no longer an option. Our residents deserve answers, a clear plan, and confidence that when they turn on the tap, clear drinking water will be there. I commend this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Naomi Smith. I now invite Councillor Charlotte Connell to second the motion.
Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Would you like to second it and
I would like
speak
to
now
second
or
this
reserve your
motion
right?
and Speak now, please, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Lord Mayor, I suspect I'm not the only councillor in the chamber who's genuinely been frightened by these recent water shortages and outages. During the latest interruption in the middle of a heatwave, I found myself lying awake thinking about vulnerable residents that we don't know personally, living alone, perhaps without family nearby, without transport or the mobility to collect bottled water or seek help. As one day became 2 and 2 became 5, I stopped thinking simply about inconvenience. I found myself wondering whether someone, somewhere in our district, was coming to serious harm because they did not have access to safe drinking water. This is not a thought any of us here should have to carry. There's an old saying, isn't there? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. None of us want South East Water to be making us into fools. When the water fails again and again and again, I think many members across this chamber have reached the end of their tether. We ask reasonable questions because our residents deserve answers. And the national regulator has some deeply concerning conclusions. Ofwat found that South East Water failed to plan sufficiently, failed to learn from previous supply interruptions, failed to carry out effective root analysis cause, and failed to maintain key infrastructure, including reservoirs and major pipes. It concluded, Ofwat, that the company was unable to cope during periods of high demand and extreme weather. Those are not my words, they're Ofwat's. South East Water says that during periods of sustained demand, it could not extract, treat and pump water through the network quickly enough to keep pace with demand. So the obvious question is, What investment is needed to make that capacity sufficient, and when will it be delivered? South East Water reported an operating profit of 51.1 million in the year ending September 2025. I simply do not believe that a company making profit on that scale, and in previous years offering large dividends, can justify leaving households without drinking water. If there's room for profit, there's money for resilience. Water is not a luxury. Lord Mayor, let me be absolutely clear, this motion is not anti-development. I support well-placed homes that have been identified through community consultation. But new homes must only be built where there's confidence that they won't jeopardise supply to existing and prior residents of neighbouring communities. I strongly support the work being done through the emerging Regulation 19 local plan, particularly policy DS15, which strengthens the way infrastructure is secured through funding and delivery programmes, planning conditions and Section 106 agreements on developments over 10 homes. It very much mirrors the motion in many ways brought by Councillor Carnac. Homes and infrastructure must go hand in hand. This motion asks for transparency, evidence and accountability. It's not about hindsight, it's about confidence. Confidence that when someone turns on a tap, clean drinking water will be there. I do hope that colleagues from every group will support this motion. And apologies to Councillor Turnbull, it is her motion alongside Councillor Carnac, who I believe is seconding. Apologies. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Charlotte Cornell. I'd now like to invite the council to debate the matter, after which a recorded vote will be taken on the resolution. I invite Councillor Turnbull to speak first.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I hope nobody minds that. So we're obviously all very concerned about water supply issues in our district. We want accountability to rest clearly with the water company, which has seriously let down its customers by siphoning off profits rather than investing in an adequate infrastructure and other measures to manage supply. The problems we face today have been foreseeable for decades, and we should not be in a position now where our residents are unable to be certain that their taps will work. It is right that we interrogate South East Water and that we continue to hold them accountable. The motion we proposed, which we're not allowed to discuss today, seeks to focus very squarely on what we as a council can do to protect our residents from any worsening of the supply issue while we work to meet the development targets set for us by the government. Phasing developments is, of course, the approach the council takes to enable infrastructure to keep pace with development. However, the current local plan makes very little reference to water supply, and it appears that the council did not carry out a full water cycle study in preparation for the plan, unlike other councils such as Dover and Ashford. The new reservoir at Broadoak will not alone provide sufficient water for all the new homes planned. In the recent application regarding Bodkin Farm, South East Water state, we are keen to work with Canterbury City Council to ensure that there are adequate water supplies and that associated infrastructure is in place to allow any new development and to manage the increased pressure on a limited resource. South East Water are not, of course, statutory consultees, and the council cannot unilaterally change that. We wish to explore, though, whether the council can make a decision to consult South East Water on all substantial developments. We suggest 10 or more dwellings or the equivalent. We need this consultation to be more meaningful than just that they can connect to the site. We need full awareness of the implications of a new development for the water supply in that area and how South East Water will ensure not only that that site will be supplied with adequate water, but also that other residents will not suffer from shortages because of it. To make this council's approach clear and to demonstrate to residents and the water suppliers that we are taking this role in our role in this matter very seriously, we ask that Cabinet consider, in addition to the points proposed, the drafting of a policy to sit alongside the local plan, which sets out the council's expectations. This policy would then guide planning officers in their approach to substantial applications, particularly important once the new regulations we've been discussing tonight regarding planning decisions come into effect later this year. Accordingly, I propose the following amendments to this motion. To add 2 extra clauses, 5 and 6. That is, this council resolves to ask Cabinet to consider, number 5, including South East Water or any subsequent water provider as a consultee for all planning applications of 10 or more dwellings or any development with similar water supply demands with immediate effect. And 6, tasking officers to research and draft a policy to sit alongside the local plan, which ensures no development will be undertaken without a clear, phased plan to ensure that local water supply capacity will be sufficient to accommodate the new builds without degrading service to existing residents. I hope the council will be able to support these amendments. We have got a few copies to send around and to pass to John. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder to
Yes.
that amendment?
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Connick.
If we can just take a second to hand around the amendment and so people can see what they're debating, and then we can move to a debate on the amendment.
Sorry, it's just a few copies, not one for everyone, I'm afraid.
Councillor Connick, would you like to speak on the amendment or would you like to reserve?
I'll reserve, please.
So we will now be moving to a debate on the amendment, which is 5, including South East Water or any subsequent water provider as a consultee for all planning applications of 10 or more dwellings or any development with similar water supply demands with immediate effect. And 6, tasking officers to search and draft a policy to sit alongside the local plan, which ensures no development will be undertaken without a clear phased plan to ensure that local water supply capacity will be sufficient to accommodate the new builds without degrading services to existing residents. Would anybody like to debate on this amendment?
Chris Cornell, Councillor Slow.
Thank you. So I invite Charlotte Cornell.
It's a question just to open up the debate on point 6. I'm reserving opinion on point 5 as we received some legal guidance there. But on point 6, how is that any different from draft policy DS15 in the current Reg 19? This seems to me to be already part of the draft Reg 19. I'm unsure what's different about the ask at 6.
You'll be able to answer that when you sum up later, so it won't be a direct question and answer.
I'll leave that one for, thank you.
Councillor Chris Cornell.
I'm no planning expert, but I have tried to go back and forth a bit with planning officers on what we do. And I know that in this chamber, we've spoken a little bit about tools and toolkits. And in previous conversations, we've had discussions about wielding conditions, which actually I think sometimes we've characterized as being things which planning committees can put on. But the truth is that they are also a series of forms which require specific information of developers and have an element of public accountability. They're quite clear. It's like a series of forms which are available on a website that people can see. And I have asked questions about officers about whether we can implement something similar and about consultations. And all the responses I've had so far are, that's what happens in DS19. The problem, however, is that the local plan has to be agreed in principle, and then the changes that you are going to bring forward through that local plan, including lots of different things, have got to have guidance about how we produce them. I think that we would expect that once it gets through to Reg 19 and you've got some confidence, we would start bringing those policies forward. And I don't think any of those changes in terms of consultation here are anything which is not going to be planned. But I think the challenge is that drafting a policy in advance of our local plan being agreed is pretty problematic because, to be honest, some people in this chamber didn't vote for it and are going to stand up and probably try and get it thrown out by the inspectorate. So if that is the case, asking us to draft a policy when there is not a local plan agreed is a challenge. And I think it's a question of timing. I actually think that the stuff in here is perfectly fine, but the question is, when do we implement it?
Thank you, Councillor Chris Cornell. Councillor Sol.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. we've all heard residents say to us, how on earth can you grant planning permission for those homes when there's not enough water at the moment? And the outages we've seen, just seem to highlight that even more. We also know that the water companies have a legal duty to supply water to developments, but we don't believe it, and the evidence isn't there in our eyes. So forcing them, or at least asking them to confirm that they will supply water, seems a logical thing to do. I suspect we may well just get a template letter back every time we ask this, just saying, yeah, of course we're going to supply it, we've got to by law. But let's ask them, let's see what happens, and let us be able to say to our residents, we know you've got concerns about water supply, we've got those concerns, and we've put them to the water companies to see what they've had to say, and they're telling us yes or no that they can supply it. So I think this is a very sensible amendment to the motion, and I look forward to supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Soul. Councillor Dan Smith.
Thank you very much, Chair. I echo what Councillor Soul has just said. He mentioned evidence in that. I get updates from South East Water on my phone when they have issues in an area. I started doing that in January when I had a message on the 12th of January saying, we are truly sorry to customers experiencing no water or low pressure. We currently have pressure issues on our site, which means we are unable to pump the water. This is due to issues caused by Storm Goretti. That storm seems to be running on for a very long time. We've subsequently had 37 water leaks notified in my area. 37, and that's just the ones that come in the housing areas down to the Cherries. It's really not a very big area. It's not the whole of Blean. It doesn't include the villages. So it's that gives them and then if they're not repairing those, some of them are running on for weeks before there's any action taken. That's why we have no confidence. The evidence is there that they don't do repairs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dan Smith. Councillor Naomi Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Your first item 5, including South East Water for any subsequent water provider as a consultee on planning applications. We already do that with Southern Water, as we know, those of us who sit on planning. If you'd looked at the Bodkin Farm application that's in front of committee on Tuesday, you will see that South East Water have been consulted. And they have said there is no problem joining, there is no network upgrade needed for Bodkin Farm. As Charlotte said, fool me once, fool me twice, fool me twice. We know that that system isn't there, but South East Water, because they have a legal obligation to say they can provide water, are not going to say that they can't. So I'm not sure, because Southern Water say the same things on all of their applications. We don't get, oh, we think it might be difficult, or we think there might be a challenge. They say that in scrutiny, but they don't say it in a planning application. So I'm not sure what effect it will have.
Thank you, Councillor Naomi Smith. Councillor Stuart Heaver.
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. I think we all share the same outrage about what's going on and probably don't need it to be described, or the severity of public angst about it. But I think there are things we could do as a council to do this, and I think those have already been in the public domain for a while. But just to speak about these two specific things, and they're not asking council to implement them in accordance with your the style and approach of your original motion. They're for the cabinet to consider them. So we completely get that, but we do have a problem, because I know it's an elephant in the room, and I'm not trying to make political capital out of it or revisit old arguments, but we have a Reg 19 local plan that says there's going to be 23,000 plus new homes. And we have a letter from South East Water saying that according to their raw water resources management plan, 10,400 of those approximately won't be accounted for. Now that's tricky, because it's a local plan, it's in there. I may not like it or may oppose it, but the chances are that's going to go through. And the NPPF paragraph 14C states, planning policies and decisions should support development that makes sufficient use of land, taking into account the availability and capacity of infrastructure and services, both existing and proposed, as well as their potential for further improvement. So the planning inspector is going to know all about this, and without wanting to revisit the local plan, this amendment deliberately doesn't do that, rather than open that Pandora's box and go all around those circles again to something that's been voted for and it's going through the process, and we all kind of accept that, however reluctantly we might be. But in the way at the moment, the local plan doesn't actually say anything about water infrastructure at all in DS15, infrastructure delivery, or policy DS24, sustainable dangerous water. So the planning inspector, I think, may have something to say about that anyway, but that will have to come out in the wash. But the point is that bullet point 6 just offers constructive suggestions with no attempt for any political scoring, or doesn't attempt to require redrafting the local plan and revisit that entire thing. You can have this parallel policy, even if the local plan fails, succeeds, it still sits there and has a sensible way of ensuring that the infrastructure is in place when development is approved. It's a common sense thing without tampering with local plans. So it's pragmatic, it's sensible, it's non-ideological, and the bit of treating South East Water and Southern Water, we can't make them statutory, but I don't think there's anything wrong with Cabinet considering whether we can treat them as though they were, because it's going to be in Cunliffe, it's going to come through in the white paper in due course anyway. Why not get ahead of the game and show residents in the district, we're interested in dealing with this. It's a relatively modest measure. We're going to speak with one voice. You've got good measures in your motion. There were good measures in this motion. Why not combine them, have the best of both worlds and speak with one voice?
Thank you, Councillor Heaver. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Until we have legislation with the government to say that South East Water Connection is a consultee, we're going round and round in circles. I agree with the motion. That's fine. But I'm not sure whether we can wait until 2028 for this local plan to actually go through. We can't wait that. As Councillor Naomi Smith mentioned, we've got an application coming Monday where 300 houses going in, and down the road they've got no water supply. So they'll be coming in telling us why we're connecting it and reasons, this, that and the other. So we need to do something now, and we need the legislation. And there was a minister on the news just the other day saying, we're not going to allow people to build unless you can connect the sewage system, connect the water system, connect the power system, connect this, connect that. Okay, so if that's coming forward, bring it on. But as I said, Monday, we've got a whole new shift of cabinet members. So God knows what's going to happen Monday, Tuesday, right? We're all going to move to Birmingham. After Manchester, sorry. I've got an old property and I've got a water tank in the loft to store X amount of water. All the new properties coming in, they're all direct feed. They're all combi boilers. They're all heat source pumps, let's go green, right? You're not storing any water anywhere, so you're knackered from day one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Dawkins.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I did have a whole speech rolled out, but we're getting into the depths of this now. But just in terms of the amendments that have come in from Clark and Turbo, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I feel that number 2 in the original motion is very, very. Yeah, I know. I'd get into that. Do you want to just wait until I finish with my sentence? Right. Thank you. Yeah, number 2 and number 6, are very similar in execution. They actually kind of saying the same thing. Number 2 is saying that we want to report back and look to find out what regulatory and legal mechanisms are available. So in a way, it's kind of a bit stronger than number 6, because we actually want to come back with something that actually could make a damn difference to the whole situation. Whereas the other one's asking for policy, it might be from the report that comes back that we might decide that the action would be to have a policy. So they're kind of almost the same thing. And then number 5, as discussed, is that we already do consult, and it doesn't really make a difference. They can just say, yeah, that's okay. So we get it. So yeah, except number 5, number 6, kind of the same anyway. So I think we're all on the same page. That's all I want to say. Thank you for letting me speak, Councillor Carney.
Thank you. I'm just reminding everybody that we are debating the amendment 5 and 6 bolted on, and that still is the council resolves to ask Cabinet to consider, and it's with those two bits bolted on. Would anybody else like to speak on the amendment? Councillor Baldock.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's just that the amendments, both of them, seek to what I call predetermine an outcome. One is that it's 10 or more, and the other one is, to research a local plan which ensures no development will undertake. They're both predetermining things, whereas the amendments that are in the original don't really seek to predetermine that, but they do actually seek, as Councillor Dawkins points out, to cover those points off, but not in a predetermined way. So when you're making your decision, I would just seek to see whether you ought to perhaps read the original wording of the amendment or the motion and see whether you're comfortable with keeping the original motion and whether that motion has the opportunity to take those points that you're worried about and you want to predetermine in those motions.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. Would anybody else like to come in to speak on the amendment? If not, we would ask the seconder to speak, and then I'll come back to the proposer. So, Councillor Carnac.
Yeah, thank you. I commend that we all agree to add these two extra clauses. As has been explained, this is going to Cabinet. It's not saying this would be a change of policy, so it will be for Cabinet to discuss. I just having a really quick look through DS15. I think it is different. I agree, Councillor Dawkins, 2 and 6 are similar, but 6 is strengthening that. There is a lot in the infrastructure delivery policy on sustainable drainage, water efficiency requirements, but I think this drills down much deeper into having this draft policy. What I would say, and I agree with Councillor Smith on this, is that we have asked over and over again about what is happening with the water, and none of us get any straight answers. And we know this week that we've had low water pressure yet again. Sneakily, I wasn't told, but I found my dishwasher hadn't worked overnight. So, and I thought there was a big fault with it, but when I checked, it's low water pressure. And so then we got an announcement today to say that the pumping station had failed again. So it's all very cloak and daggers. They're not being straightforward with us. And also my local school had to close, and this week nearly had to close again. And I mean, I ask, what do you do as a head teacher when you get a call at 4 in the afternoon saying, oh, we're going to have to turn your water off tomorrow. It's up to you whether you close or not. Well, 400 little ones needing the loo by 10 a.m. What do you do? And it's leaving people like head teachers, business owners, doctors, nurses, people running health practices and all sorts of places having to make decisions on the hoof with very poor information. It's just not on. So I really feel we just have to strengthen this as much as we can, get this in, and then leave it to Cabinet to thrash it all out. What I would just quickly say is when we started with Southern Water, they were similar. They would just send a letter in. We see no problems. Now we are starting to see them responding to planning applications with wanting more answers and wanting more detail and saying that they have an issue. So I feel they've got into a habit of responding now, which South East Water hasn't. And that's because we're getting to the right people. So I would just ask, please support this and let's get it through. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carnac, and I now bring it back to the proposer, Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you for the discussion and for considering these amendments. I mean, I agree that they cover similar ground. Of course they do, because they are similar things that we want to do. I just feel that they just give it a bit of strengthening, a bit of bolstering. Obviously, you know, it's for consideration, Councillor Baldock. We're not sort of saying this is what should happen. It's like these are some ideas that we're putting forward to strengthen it and to demonstrate that we are serious and that we want to do the bit that we can in the best way that we can, and to do it thoroughly and do it as soon as we can, so that we're getting on there straight away. I'm not sure that we always do consult South East Water on developments. I don't think that we do. I know we do Southern Water, obviously, because they are, you know, that is statutory, they're statutory consultees. I'm just scrolling like mad through Brooklyn to see if we did on there, because I don't think we did on land south of Thanet Way when I looked at that the other day. So I'm not sure that it is. And so it is just saying, let's always make sure that they are included. Let's make them statutory from our point of view. So, yeah, I hope that you feel you can support these amendments to put to Cabinet, along with the other amendments from as part of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turnbull. So now we've debated the amendment, so we'll be going to a vote, and we'll be voting. A 4 would be adding the 2 extra clauses 5 and 6.
That's carried. 32 in favour, 1 abstain.
Thank you. We will now go back to the motion with the amendments 5 and 6, and we'll go back to the previous list. And I have Councillor Flanagan.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm very supportive of this motion tonight with the amendments as well. So thank you to Councillor Charlotte Cornell and Councillor Naomi Smith for bringing it to Council. Supportive of the focus on the operational side of what South East Water do. That is incredibly important, of course. I'd just like to make a call for us not to lose focus on the communication side between South East Water and their customers and us as councillors as well. Going back to May and June, we saw confused messaging from South East Water, particularly on their website. One moment, you know, cause for disruption was because of hot weather. The next moment, it was technical conditions. If you phone their call centre, different reasons were given. I had residents contact me, as I'm sure we all did, to say that they had various reasons given to them. Confusion as well amongst which residents were even on the priority list. Some of us were out delivering and volunteering, delivering water bottles. I came across a number of residents who expected to be on the priority list. They'd registered for it, but didn't get any bottles delivered because they didn't click the point on the website about requesting delivery to their doorstep. That wasn't very clear at all. And this is all the more galling when you consider that at the Whitstable School, the public meeting that many of us were at last year, on the presentation that South East Water provided, they said that actions undertaken included, and I quote, discussions had as to how communications with customers and stakeholders could be improved. Now, earlier on, I asked a question of Councillor Chris Cornell about an issue in my ward, Broomfield Gate and Radfall. I have also written to South East Water about this over a month ago, chased several times, increasingly getting heated chasing as well. Finally got a response. My request had been, can we see a plan for how you're going to deal with the issue of Broomfield Gate and Radfall? The response I got covered a number of areas, but omitted the words Broomfield Gate or Radfall, but instead covered a number of the actions that South East Water were taking to provide water across the area they supply. So whilst I'm absolutely delighted that measures are being taken to help residents in Maidstone, Tunbridge Wells and West Sussex, that doesn't inspire a great deal of confidence in myself or the residents I represent when I've asked them, what is your plan to fix this problem? And they respond with a letter like that. So the communication absolutely has to be dealt with. And I ask the council, the administration, all councillors to continue keeping up, and I will use the term, the pressure on South East Water to make sure their communication continues. Because what we've also seen recently as well is the irony here is that they're now supplying water bottles ahead of any potential cut to disruption. But you've now got residents waking up the following morning not being told about the water bottles and assuming there's going to be a cut to their water supply. The communication is still not good enough. So please let us not lose sight of that. Let's keep that particular focus when we're discussing these
I
matters.
take it you're
with
wrapping
South
up
East
now,
Water.
Councillor Flanagan.
Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. I now move on to Councillor Ricketts.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Flanagan, for ruining what I'm about to say. No, I think it's come up a couple of times, is what do we hope to achieve by these things? And I think, actually, as Councillor Flanagan referenced, sometimes I think we debate things here and we don't see any practical effect. But one thing that has happened is that I spent my Saturday morning on the phone to South East Water after I'd had several of my neighbours asking why they had 24 litres of water delivered to them and when's the water about to go off. And it seems that what we do here and what other councillors are doing all around the country and certainly a lot across this part of Kent is having one demonstrable effect on the water company, which is that they realise that their communications and their emergency response has been poor. That was the area we hammered them on. And it meant that I got to speak to a couple of people on Saturday morning and they couldn't reach out to a couple of village halls. I luckily pointed them in the direction of the sheriff so that they could have a look at Blean Village Hall, set up a water station there. They ended up setting one up in the car park of the Hare. There was so much water available in the north part of Canterbury on Saturday morning, and some of it, unfortunately, in sponges that were thrown at me and the stocks at the Rough Common Village Fete. The taps didn't go off, which unfortunately meant that was still able to happen. But I think that's the point, is sometimes we do wonder if these motions on water have an effect, and they are having a small effect in that they are now panicking in the other direction and providing water to people before the taps go off, or even when they don't go off at all. And I think that we have to keep the pressure up, as Councillor Flanagan says, because that at least is making them move in the right direction. And maybe one day it might actually apply enough pressure that they'll fix the blooming pipes. So I support this motion as amended, and I think that we need to keep bringing these things forward and keep them under the cosh.
Thank you, Councillor Ricketts. Councillor Mackenzie.
Okay, thank you, Lord Mayor. I wanted to speak on behalf of the residents of Story Ward today. So while there have been no significant water shortages in Story Ward like there has been on the coast and in parts of Canterbury, many of the residents that Councillor Moses and I serve are worried about whether it is only a matter of time until it is their turn for their taps to go off. And I'm sure that is the same for many councillors in this chamber who are in wards that haven't yet been affected, yet being the operative word. Only recently, the chair of the Story and Broadoak Residents Association was asking us whether there was a plan in place in case this emergency occurred in Story or Broadoak, especially considering the high proportion of elderly and or vulnerable people in these two villages. And last week, South East Water, as has already been mentioned, were setting up bottled water stations in parts of Canterbury, including the Asda car park on Story Road, just in case they were required. And this led to a few concerned residents taking to the Sabora Facebook page to raise the situation and ask what was going on. The anxiety felt by a lot of residents, not just in the ward that I represent, but in many parts of our district, especially those where these shortages have been felt most acutely, and especially as paying customers for a vital service and human need must be taken seriously. They deserve clarity of the problem and assurance of improvement, because ultimately, how can they have confidence in South East Water to deliver for them if they can't have something as basic as this? And then on the point of planning and development, one of the most common questions by far that I get asked is, should development be permitted if existing infrastructure already struggles to meet demand, and whether development should be held back at least until adequate infrastructure capability is there to cope with it. These questions have been brought up, as we all know, throughout the entire draft local plan process and on most of the planning applications I've come across as a ward councillor. In a democracy, we must hear the voices of the people we represent. And in the ward that Councillor Moses and I represent, a lot of residents have raised their voice on this. And a vote for this motion will not predetermine anything, but it will mean that Cabinet investigates and commissions a report back to us on the possibility of pausing or phasing development, now strengthened by the amendment we have agreed this evening, so it better keeps pace with infrastructure capability. In my view, this is not anti-development, it is simply a common sense measure to ensure that new homes built can provide the basic necessities for people to live in them without putting excessive strain on existing infrastructure that serves our communities, which was reflected by Steve Reed, the Secretary of State, as mentioned in the original motion. So I support this motion and I thank you, all the councillors involved in bringing it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. Councillor Dan Smith.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm somewhat flabbergasted with South East Water on the front that many bodies would have difficulty communicating with residents in a particular area, but a water company has the addresses of everybody who uses the water. So it's well within their power to send a letter to absolutely everybody and get their contact details in the event of an emergency. The bottled water turning up that Councillor Ricketts mentioned just now, he lives just up the road from me, so I had the similar issue with bottled water turning up. I am on their communication list and there was no notification at all from them about that. I had not a clue. They just turned up on my doorstep. So it's absolutely despicable, their level of communication to date. And I think there's an enormous amount of room for improvement, and anything we can do to push them in that direction would be extremely sort of helpful to all our residents and to the wider district and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dan Smith. Councillor Baldock.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I've been forwarded on a statement that was made in the House today by Emma Hardy, Minister for Water and Flooding. And I just thought, if you just bear with me a second, I'll just read out a bit, because the mention earlier on was about, does this make any difference what we're doing, the pressure we're putting on? That word again, pressure, sorry. You started this, James, haven't you, really? But I think actually this is probably a reflection of actually that the message is getting through. And I'll take an extract out of the middle of it. You'd be very welcome, of course, to read the whole lot. I expect all water companies to manage periods of exceptional demand, protect vulnerable customers and respond effectively to incidents. Where performance or preparedness falls short, I will not hesitate to take action needed to minimise impacts to customers. I welcome Ofwat's announcement of a £30.5 million redress package for South East Water for the failures that left thousands of households without water for days. The package was developed following a joined-up approach between water regulators targeting the best possible action to address South East Water's failures. This is in line with the government's proposed water reforms, which will involve the new regulator taking a supervisory approach, enabling a broader and better understanding of company performance, earlier intervention and prevention of further decline. The package also includes requirements to produce a performance improvement plan, setting out how the company will deliver sustained improvements in its performance and independent monitor to support Ofwat in assessing the progress of the plan. So that's from the Minister. It kind of picks up lots of the threads of this motion that we're putting through, you know, and it is some supporting at a high level. So I thought it was worth it, and I appreciate being sent that reminder in this meeting. I thought it was worth bringing that to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. We've got 4 more speakers on this. So Councillor Prentice.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I commend this motion and I thank Councillor Turnbull and Councillor Carnac for the amendments because it is important that our strength of feeling on this issue is heard, and it is right that we do speak cross-party on this wherever we can. I'm particularly concerned with the long-term picture, but that is because I'm not fully furnished with the information I need about this specific infrastructure provider and how it can do its most basic job of keeping the taps on. There are unanswered questions, and in the last few weeks I have become more aware of where the water supply goes more specifically, and the extent to which different customers receive their supply, how they receive their supply, whether they're residential, domestic customers, agricultural and business, and so on. And so we do demand honesty and transparency about how South East Water prioritises and handles different customers, not because different customers deserve to be played off against each other, but because it's in the public interest to know how our water supplier is doing its job. We won't get all the answers overnight, but I hope this motion as amended, that I hope we'll all vote for, can at least support our cabinet in taking the decisions that they feel are necessary.
Thank you, Councillor Prentice. We have Councillor Buckman, Councillor Carnac and Councillor Hazelton. Councillor Buckman.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll try and keep this fairly short and just stick to 3 points as such. I heard today actually, I think that South East Water have got about £30 million that they need to spend, but only 13 million, less than half, 13 million is going to be spent on the actual infrastructure. And it would be really great if they could be challenged on why they have broken down that smaller amount just for the infrastructure themselves, and the rest of it being spent on things like water butts and smart metering that, you know, aren't going to help a lot of people. Aren't going to help a lot of people. Why are they only spending that smaller amount? I was also doing some searching that they now have a form online for people with residents who own livestock, and that has never been communicated from South East Water at all to us to say that there is an online form for residents to fill in if they have livestock, so that they are aware of this. And I just feel it's just the whole thing is just what they're doing. They have tankering is their resilience. It's their answer to a problem that's not going to go away, and that is not an answer. That's just a bodge. It's a fudge, and it's never going to work. And I just want to briefly just go back to that 13 million. If there is nothing in their scheduled works about the Thannington water treatment plant at all online, and I looked, and a couple of the other works that are scheduled for treatment works are about £30 million, or more than the 13 million. So how would you? This motion goes a long way to challenge and to get the answers, and it's good that councillors Smith and Cornell are doing this, and with the support of everyone. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Councillor Buckman. We have 3 speakers left. Councillor Carnac.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I support this motion. I think we can all see that the people of our district are very concerned about what's going on, and I think it's absolutely important that as 39 councillors, we're able to show that we're doing all we can to support our residents through this period. And I agree with Councillor Charlotte Cornell. I dread that email coming through now that says that there might be a problem. I think this precautionary delivery of water is an absolute nonsense. On the one hand, it's great because people aren't scrabbling for water, but it's now becoming a habit. You know, it's like, oh, you know, the pumps are failing a bit, so let's just deliver a load of water and problem solved. It's not problem solved. I don't think, you know, it's not anti-development, but we do need to be very honest and open-minded about how people have resources. And it's not necessarily a lack of water. What is a problem with their infrastructure, the problem with their pumping stations, their treatment stations, and as Councillor Buckman has just said, you know, they're not investing the money in upgrading these. I know Councillor Flanagan's had an absolute runaround trying to find out when the plant near him is going to be upgraded. Pumps in my ward have been running with emergency generators for weeks now, disturbing the neighbours because they're just groaning away for 24 hours a day. Absolutely no one has seen anybody actually coming and replacing infrastructure. And I think it's really key, this 30 million and the 13 or whatever it is, we need to know when we're going to get those upgrades to our infrastructure, because that will make all the difference, and that will help us deliver our housing, because they're fixing the infrastructure. So it makes it, if we're fighting that, it makes it easier for us then to be able to counter the, oh, just stop development dead. As I pointed out to someone, you know, we can't just stop all development dead, given the number of people employed in jobs in construction, and also the number of people that need housing. You know, I mentioned it earlier, our problems with our housing list. So we need to be doing all we can practically to apply pressure. That's pretty much all we can. But if we keep applying pressure, the better that chance we have of South East Water sorting this out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carnac. If we had the word pressure in our bingo, I think we're doing quite well. Councillor Hazelton.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Okay, so I just want to say, obviously, I'm agreed, as we all are, around the full council chamber about the issues and the problems, but I will probably be the only person here abstaining on the final vote because I'm unsure of the legal ramifications on the passing of our draft local plan at Reg 19 of passing this motion with those amendments. I may be wrong, but I haven't had the benefit of the legal advice on that. But that may well come through to Cabinet, and so I may be wrong about that. But on, I agree with a lot of what Councillor Carnac and others have said about, you know, it may be just about applying pressure. There's not much else we can do, but there is something we can do, and there's something we are doing, and we are fitting water limiters to our council housing stock, which is actually reducing the daily literage usage. It's not reducing the efficacy of supply. It's unlocking nutrient neutrality tokens credits, and it is lowering household bills. And we are doing that at pace across our housing stock. So we are doing something small and local. And as ever the optimist, both local and national, I want to commend to the council the fact that on Monday we will have the first Labour and cooperative Prime Minister ever, and they are talking about mutualisation of our main companies, including the water companies, and that may well be an affordable way of bringing back control and the management of our water companies into mutual community ownership. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hazelton. We have two more speakers, and then we will wrap up with Councillor Naomi Smith as the original proposer. So we have Councillor Chris Cornell.
I feel the challenge is to do 3 minutes without mentioning the word pressure. It strikes me at the moment we're in a kind of a strange like water rage situation, which was everybody's angry about this. And about 3 days ago, someone told me on social media that I should hang my head in shame because because I had voted for a local plan and it created a 4-car pile-up outside Tesco. And I was trying to explain that the idea of suggesting that you need to build housing to deal with housing need in the future, houses which haven't been built yet, is not the reason that someone didn't check their blind spot as they left. But certainly there's an awful lot of stress and there's a lot of willingness to point fingers at people and say that it's all these migrants coming in, even if they're just down from London, which are creating these problems. I think it's really important to acknowledge where we're at. And I think Mike did it to start with. This problem is a problem of failed promises. And it's a problem that we in this council didn't make. It's a problem we've inherited because those promises were made to councillors 20 years ago, 15 years ago, when they agreed that local plan and they said that they could deal with things. The fact that there is no water in the tap here is not to do with the local plan based for 2045. Now, my dad used to say that if you have a problem, you've really got to try to understand the key aspects of it. And I think it's right. So it's not a problem that necessarily we've made. I think we've highlighted that. It's not even necessarily a problem of water scarcity because there is water in the reservoirs. I think, as James has identified, it's a problem about pumping the water up the hill. And it particularly affects certain areas where we know, which is reliant on the Thannington pumping station and reservoirs to the north of Canterbury. It's not even necessarily a problem of house building, although obviously new people do put additional pressure on it, because effectively house building brings new people into the area who pay additional areas. But it is a problem, like Councillor Heaver said, of the perverse scenario, which is you have to agree to these things before they can decide how they're going to fund it. I would just say this motion is quite clear about what the problem is and takes some real practical steps on how to move forward. And I really appreciate the fact that actually for the first time, it's also talking about phasing of a scheme. That's something that we have some control over. It's not saying that we don't need housing. We can simultaneously have a housing crisis and a water crisis, right? We can simultaneously need to house our local people and still struggle. The question is there ways in which we can take a breath in housing development and allow infrastructure to catch up with demand? And how can we legally do that? And I think that's really important. And I think that's what our residents care about. And I think in voting for this tonight, we're taking an important step.
Thank you, Councillor Driscoll. Now I was going to be really impressed that you're going to do it in 3 minutes, but it was 3 minutes and 4 seconds. So you disappointed me slightly. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I've got a couple of comments and then followed by a question. We're building under this government and build. So I don't hold my breath if I'm not convinced what's happening on Monday. And when it comes to, may I make a comment on what Pip Hazelton said about this new world we got coming Monday? The British Steel's just been bought and it's going to cost us 1 million a day. That's 364 million a year. So please, if I don't hold my breath, what's going to happen on Monday? And the question is, it's been brought up by Councillor Pip Hazelton. Where are we legally if we vote for this with the local plan? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. If we are talking about holding our breath and water, sometimes it's wise to do that. Councillor Naomi Smith, if you can wrap up your proposal.
Sorry, Chair, that's a legal question. If we vote for this, can we not vote for the local plan? If we don't vote for this, we can vote for the local plan. That's the question.
Councillor Naomi Smith.
Thank you. To answer David's question, it's going to Cabinet to consider. It's not changing anything, okay? So that's that dealt with. I want to thank everybody today for their contributions, particularly the coastal members here who have been in the midst of the emergencies when they happen. I think I will have a degree in hydrology by the end of this. We don't know for sure what the issues are. I have asked and asked. I don't know if it's the problems at Thannington that then feed to Radful or feed to Rakehill or to Blean or Ford. And is Ford a separate thing? Then where does the water come from? They are spending millions in firefighting, bottled water, tankering. It's not fixing the infrastructure. It's just not the right thing to do. So I have I have a lot of empathy with James, who was running around that hot weekend. I was in Japan with Rachel, I believe. So, but I was responding to, residents who were sending me problems. Dan Smith picked up the water companies have everybody's addresses. They don't. They really don't, because there are retailers in this, and your most vulnerable people who live in park homes are not water company customers. Yeah. So you need to reach out to those, particularly those people, because Applegarth. I know from my own area last year what happened. In the email that both myself and Alex got, they said they were delivering to 4,000 priority customers. Charlotte worked out that's every priority customer in Canterbury got bottled water, regardless of whether they needed it. So they are really, it's chaotic. And, the communication, the bottled water that you can't, I was going to bring in 6 tonight because I've got a garage full of them because I caught them delivering them. It's just a complete waste of money. So there's the whole, and our businesses, they cannot get money back out of it because the retailer is involved. Their retailer doesn't even respond to emails. Talk to the Simon Harris at the Sportsman, who lost 30 grand last year and has had very little back through his insurance on that. So, I mean, really, I'm really proud that everybody's supporting this. And I would ask Pip to understand that it's asking Cabinet to consider. It's not about changing anything in the local plan. So maybe she could change her mind and support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Naomi Smith. So we will be taking a recorded vote. A vote for will be for the motion, including the amendment. So thank you.
That's carried 32 in favour, 1 abstain.
Thank you, everybody. Now we go to C, but I invite Councillor Turnbull and Councillor Carnac to see if you'd like to retract and remove your motion, seeing we've covered it in this one, or would you
Thank
still?
you, Lord Mayor. Yes, I'd like to withdraw
Yep,
the motion.
brilliant.
Thank you.
I second
And
that.
do you agree? Sorry. I propose a really short couple of minute comfort break, reconvene in 5 to come back for then item 10. We have 8 more items to get through, and I don't really want on my first show to kind of extend ridiculously, but let's have a short comfort break and then we can reconvene. We move to item 10, and I invite the leader to introduce the report.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Obviously, you've all had a chance to look at this. We've had bits of debate about Chancellor Trustees protecting our city status and our mayoral and other civic roles a few times. I'm grateful to Matthew and the team to have done a heck of a lot of work on this over the last few months now to get a really clear and straightforward process that protects our civic status and city status, which we all want to do, I'm sure. And we're reasonably confident. In this paper, it gives you two options. And today, what we're actually trying to achieve is not we decide which option we're going to get, which we can, I suppose, to a degree. But what we really do need to do is to give our officers the chance, the very, very clear idea which option we favour, that will then be worded into the structural changes order and be incorporated into that when it's voted in by the government. The structural changes order will set in place what actually happened to us in the new unitary authority. I embedded into that actual structure right from the beginning to be this is how we are going to operate in this particular patch to protect our city status and the Lord Mayor, and potentially now the mayoral situations in Herne Bay and Whitstable should, and only should, those two towns actually choose to go for a town councils and Canterbury a city council as well. So all of those options are not what we're debating today. What we are debating today is is the options to what do we want to have, option one or option two. Option two is we put Charter Trustees in at Canterbury to protect the city status and the Lord Mayor, and the other two towns actually will decide on whether they have a mayor, or sorry, actually have a town council. And after they've decided in the governance review, they can choose to do whatever they wish with the town, whether mayor or otherwise. So it's their choices. That's option two. Option one is we do it all in one go. In other words, we put to Charter Trustees in at the other two towns as well. So you've got the options there. We can debate that as well. But in the end of it, we need to give a very clear steer to the officers which one we as a council favour to go in the structural changes order. And that's all we need to do today. Not the rights and wrongs of what we're doing. It's literally which one we're going to do. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Leader. Would any other member like to speak? We have Councillor Nolan.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I suggest that we go for option two because it would safeguard the historic rights of Canterbury City Council. That's not to say that Whitstable and Herne Bay aren't as important. They are, but option two gives us the opportunity to go straight for looking at what happens around the historic rights of Canterbury City Council. And I think, you know, sort of picking up on the leader's clear steer there, that we need to let the officers know which way we're going. I'm going to propose that we go for option two. And that will take the steps to make sure that we keep the office of Lord Mayor, which is important, of course, and also the Sheriff, and keep safeguard the historic rights and the ceremonial roles as well. And today is quite a momentous day. We've had the decision that we've been sort of thinking about for a long time. Some of us feel that it was the right decision. Some of us may feel it was the wrong decision. But it actually puts the pressure on that we need to make sure that we don't do what Medway did and just forget in their reorganisation to safeguard their city status. And I would hate for that to happen. So do I have a seconder, please?
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
So we have a proposal to go to option two proposer Councillor Nolan and seconded Councillor Carnac. Can we go to a vote, please?
That has carried 32 in favour, 1 against.
Thank you, colleagues. We now move to item 11, representations of political groups on committees. I'd like to invite Leader Councillor Alan Baldock to propose and Deputy Leader Councillor Pip Hazelton to second the resolution.
We enter the quick fire stage of the process now, hopefully, with the fingers crossed. Okay. Move item 11, that's representation of political groups and committees. So there were a few changes, I think. So if we can just approve those changes that were put forward by the group leaders.
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Would you like to speak on that, Councillor Hazelton?
No, I'm happy with the officer's recommendations about the political balance. Thank you.
Oh, that's next one.
Thank you. Would any members like to speak?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm seeing head shakes. Naomi Smith put her hand up and then took it down. So we can take a recorded vote for that, please.
Oh, sorry.
That has carried unanimously.
Thank you, colleagues. I'd like to move on to item 12, changes to membership of committees and boards. I'd like to request that councillors note that the changes to membership of committees and subcommittees as listed on page 28 of the agenda. Can I ask the group leaders if there are any other changes to committee memberships that they would like to notify this evening?
Not from the Labour Group, Lord Mayor.
Okay, this is just for noting. We move on to 13, parish representation nominees to Standards Committee. Would councillors please note the changes to the non-voting parish representatives appointed to the Standards Committee as set out in the agenda?
Noted.
Is that noted?
Yeah.
Everybody's waving at me. Cooey. Let's move on to item 14. Council minutes. I'd like to invite the leader to propose and the deputy leader to second the approval of the minutes of the full council meeting of 30th of April.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Move for receipt and adoption. The full council meeting on 30th of April 2026.
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. And a recorded vote is required on this one.
And that has carried unanimously.
Thank you, colleagues. Move on to item 15, report back on notice of motions. I'd like to invite Peter Davies, the Chief Executive, to update members on a report back on notices of motions.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. There's a report back on the notice of motion, which was not included in the agenda pack. I therefore invite Council to note that Cabinet considered the motion relating to the South East Water Stakeholder Group at its meeting on 30th of June 2026 under minute number 155 and resolved as follows: to establish the South East Water Stakeholder Group comprising of nominated representatives from all local authorities within the South East Water regional areas. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you for that. I think that phone call's for you. Would any member like to speak? I see no member speaking. But we've got another phone call coming through. Would they like to speak on this item? Can we note that by general assent, please? Brilliant. Thank you, colleagues. We need now move to item 16 to receive the following minutes of the meetings specified. The Joint Chief Executive would like to speak. He always likes to speak.
Get Susie next time. The minutes will be dealt with in turn. The Lord Mayor will invite the relevant chair to propose the receipt and adoption of the minutes and then ask for a seconder for the proposal. Councillors are permitted to debate the minutes if they wish, but they cannot be amended. The only possible action if there is disagreement on the accuracy of the minutes is for them to be sent back to the relevant committee. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. So I'll go through the list asking for a proposer and seconder for the Cabinet for the 20th of April 2026, the 9th June 2026, Councillor Baldock and Councillor Hazelton.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I move for receipt and adoption the minutes of the Cabinet meeting on the 20th of April 2026 and the 9th of June 2026.
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Now we move on to the Cabinet Advisory Committee, Councillor Turnbull and Councillor Hazelton.
Oh, I haven't done this before. What was that? I move for receipt and adoption. I move for receipt and adoption the minutes of the Cabinet Advisory Committee Housing on Thursday, the 23rd of April and Thursday, the 18th of June, pages 53 to 61. Thank you.
Can I have a seconder, please?
Oh, well, I mean, seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Now we move changing of the guard, Companies Advisory Committee, Councillor Ricketts and Councillor Watkins.
I move for receipt and adoption of the minutes of the Companies Advisory Committee on Wednesday, the 17th of June 2026.
Thank you. And I should have asked general assent for each of those. So the previous ones, did we general assent all of them? Thank you. Apologies. Do I have a seconder? And can we agree that by general assent? Thank you. We move to the Governance Committee, Councillor Watkins and Councillor A. Harvey.
Yeah, what she said. Which was what he said. Yeah, you do it, Andy.
I'd move to receive and adopt the minutes of the Governance Committee of Wednesday, 8th of July, 2026.
Seconded.
So unprofessional. Thank you. General assent? Thank you. Licensing Committee, 20th of April to 18th of May. Councillor Harvey and Councillor Naomi Smith.
Move to receive and adopt the minutes of the Licensing Committee of Monday, 20th of April, 2026 and Monday, 18th of May, 2026.
Seconded.
And do we agree general assent? Thank you. License Committee again. You've done that. Thank you. Overview Committee.
Licensing sub.
The Licensing Subcommittee. Apologies. This
Thank
is
you,
my
Lord
first day. Councillor Harvey and Councillor Naomi Smith.
I move to receive and adopt the minutes of the Licensing Subcommittee, Wednesday, 24th of June, 2026.
Seconded.
And can we agree that by general assent? Thank you. Now we go to the Overview Committee, Councillor Edwards and Councillor Forrester.
I move for receipt and adoption the minutes of the Overview Committee, Thursday, 11th of June, 2026. Thank you.
Seconded.
Can we agree that by general assent? Thank you. We move on to the Planning Committee, Councillor Prentice and Councillor Dan Smith.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I move for receipt and adoption the minutes of the Planning Committee held on Tuesday, the 28th of April 2026 and Tuesday, the 23rd of June 2026. Do I see a seconder, please?
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Can we agree that by general assent? Thank you. And we move finally on to the Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Carnac and Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I submit for receipt and adoption the minutes of the Scrutiny Committee on Wednesday, 3rd of June 2026, pages 85 to 90, and Wednesday, 24th of June 2026, pages 91 to 95. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
And can we agree that by general assent? Thank you, everybody. That's my favourite item of the evening. We'll now move on to item 17, to receive any notice of urgent decisions made by the Joint Chief Executive under declaration. There are none. Item 18, any other urgent business to be dealt with on the night? There's no other urgent business. Thank you, everybody, for participating. I hope you have a lovely evening. And I draw this meeting to a close at 10 o'clock.